Well done, peeps.
Done, Tim.
You're sharp.
Thank you, Councillor Filipina.
Sorry.
Pretty kind of you, Alf.
We'll go to item 10, members, and we go south to the wonderful area of Anuriwa, Papakura and Takanini. That's the integrated area plan. And Michael Luong and John Dogood, and I can't remember the other name, I'm sorry.
Trevor Watson.
Trevor,
Thank
of
you,
course.
Chair.
Welcome, Trevor. Now, just as we kick this off, Sir John and Councillor Newman, Councillor Sir John and Councillor Newman, you wanted to move and second?
Yep.
Moved by?
Either or.
Either or. I'll go for the seniority then, Sir John. And seconded by Councillor Newman.
Senior in years.
Sorry?
Senior in years.
Something like that. And John, in your hands?
Great. Thank you, Councillor Darby. Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. So, just very briefly, this is a project that commenced just over a year ago, working very closely with the Manarewa and Papakura local boards. It is a spatial plan, but not the mega spatial plan or the overarching Auckland plan. It's at that more local level, although this is covering quite a swathe of South Auckland where there's a lot of growth and change happening along the Great South Road between Manarewa and Papakura going through Takanini. So Michael Luong has been the principal planner on this project, has done an outstanding job. The plan is strongly endorsed by the two local boards who've worked very closely with council staff and the community on this plan, and Trevor is Michael's team leader. So probably just briefly hand over to Michael. I think he has a couple of things to say.
Just a few things. Yeah, I guess it's a pleasure to finally bring this plan to the Planning Committee for endorsement. It's been a long year, and we've just had it recently adopted by both the Manarewa Local Board and the Papakura Local Board, with the help of Councillor Newman and Councillor Walker as well. So it's been a bit of a milestone getting here, and yeah, and we'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, I want to acknowledge your work. I know you're the one at the coalface doing this. It's a very big spatial area of the South. South's a big focus for us. I want to acknowledge your really constructive work down there. All the feedback I've heard from the boards is they've been delighted, absolutely delighted with the engagement between themselves and yourself and your teams. Thank you. Members, yesterday I proposed to the councillors that in addition to, on page 362 you'll see a message from the joint boards. I proposed a message from the councillors who represent the ward as well, and Councillor Sir John Walker and Councillor Newman, and I think you've both agreed to that, and I'm sure one or both of you might refer to that. So it just shows the endorsement of not just the local boards, but the councillors who are championing this work as well, and Sir John and Councillor Newman locally. Can I take questions at this stage? Councillor Wayne Walker.
Yeah, couple of questions. Just under transformative projects that go to transport, I don't see any mention around the prospect of rail transport to the airport. You know, Puanui and so on. So just have a question mark around that.
It's a bit to the north there, isn't it?
Well, it links, doesn't it?
North or east.
Michael?
Well, I guess the three centres themselves are on the main rail link, and that links up to Manukau at the moment.
And similarly, reference to heavy rail links to the south and electrification to Pukekohe and conceivably further south.
Yeah, I think the key comment is that this plan sits under the umbrella of the Auckland plan, and it's you know, those sorts of big strategic transport initiatives are sitting in the Auckland plan and still working their way through into the long-term plan as well. So it's probably not too surprising that level of detail is in this particular plan, but I think it's a given that improving transport connections to and through this area and from this area to other parts of Auckland, including the airport, is essential.
Okay, and the other question, Mr Chair, just goes to issues around flooding and inundation within the area, especially in Takanini and other parts of the catchment that are already subject to flooding and, of course, likely inundation with sea level rise. So I just wonder, whether there's any commentary that could be included around that, or any links to documents that go to that.
Through the Chair, well, certainly the issues around flooding and inundation are primarily addressed from a regulatory point of view through the Auckland Unitary Plan, and it would have the overlays that show where those constraints apply. But again, I'll hand over to Michael or Trevor, and they can maybe speak to how flooding issues might have been discussed in the context of this spatial plan.
Through the Chair, in terms of Takanini, there are flooding issues there, and the plan itself has sort of acknowledged that through one of the transformative actions, and that's recognising the Takanini Cascades projects and working through with Healthy Waters as part of this development of this plan as well.
Thank you.
And Mr Chairman, if I can just add to that, as part of the structure planning work, which will come in due course, that those will be key issues that will be picked up. So this plan needs to be sort of set in the context of other work rather than trying to cross-cut other streams.
Thank you, Trevor. Member Namani.
Just a couple of questions of clarification. I acknowledge that the report provides quite a good level of engagement with mana whenua, but what I can't see is how the feedback's been incorporated into the plan. It's just there kind of isn't anything that tells me what issues were arisen as a consequence of the engagement and anything. So could you just take me through that, or just kind of explain to me how was their feedback incorporated to date? And then I probably just want to focus in on some elements, if that's easier to do, but I'll leave it with you.
So in terms of the feedback, especially from mana whenua, the key feedback that we received was basically in relation to the Manukau Harbour and the streams, Pinoi stream in particular, and mainly about sort of cleaning them up, and there was a need to really allow access to the harbour as well. And I guess how that translated into our transformative actions is you'll see on the corridor outcomes, we have a few actions there which deliver on those engagement results, especially through delivering Manukau Harbour restoration projects, katiaki projects to improve how the coast streams, riparian areas are managed in the area. And also if you go through the specifics like Manurewa and Takanini, there's references to restoration of Punui stream as an action.
So it's a given, because it's not clear in the plan itself that, for example, mana whenua will be partners in that process or engaged in those kind of projects, Manukau Harbour restoration, Puhinui stream. There's no kind of reference that connects them to that body of work. But that's as long as that's the intent. It's just that I'm not seeing it in the writing, in the narrative.
Just to add, mana whenua have been partners in this project, and we have sort of continued that through the many workshops we have with the local boards, and we will continue that through to the implementation and delivery of this plan.
So there'll be an opportunity post this for further engagement, because I'm just mindful, for example, on page 363, Story of the South, there doesn't seem to be a base of the history of mana whenua. If I but there's other elements. So I just, that's the only thing I have difficulty with, is just not being able to see the dots connected between what's been said and whatnot, and perhaps going forward that's something that you can look to incorporate post this.
Correct, Leanne. Mr. Chair and others, I think that's, it's very useful to get that feedback. Mana Whenua and Matawaka were extensively engaged with, and you picked that up, but we're not joining the dots in terms of necessarily the text in the plan, but Michael has given some examples of how that feedback has come in through the natural environment streams, Manukau Harbour. But going forward, this plan and any other plans adopted, this key sort of success is how we actually, as an organisation and with others, implement the plan. So we are starting to do some thinking around that, and that's where we'll again pick up the conversation with Mana Whenua around ongoing involvement in delivering some of the key initiatives that are funded in this plan. And if additional funding comes through in the long-term plan, annual plan or elsewhere, how we engage with Mana Whenua and the community going forward is very key to this plan. It almost feels like with this one, more than many of the others, that we've got to a point, there's a lot of energy in the community and commitment to sort of take the plan forward, so we really need to focus on that, work on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, team, for the effort. Two questions. The first of all, particularly with Papakura, it's a town that a lot of people who live beyond Papakura in the green spaces to the west and to the east and south use as part of their hub. So what was their involvement in the developing up of these area plans? And when we move from the area plans to the structure planning model, there are some strategic land holdings and owners in both Manurewa and Papakura. Have they been talked with the area plans so they can be involved into the next stages?
We've done quite extensive consultation, and we haven't actually specifically targeted those people who live directly outside of those areas, although one of the consultation streams that was very successful actually was picking up a lot of the commuters on the trains. I'm not saying that therefore covers everybody who lives outside of the area, but a lot of people who come into Papakura for that purpose rather than actually living in that space. So I suppose I'm partly answering your question about whether we've covered off those people. Probably not as fully as we could do, but I think we did a pretty good exercise in terms of being able to capture a wide range of people. And one of the key things we were trying to do in this exercise was to capture a lot of those people who don't normally engage with the processes. And from some of the stats we got back, we were able to achieve a lot of young people's input, a lot of wide ethnicities input. Again, that's not saying it's other people's input is not key, but I think we felt on balance we had actually got a broad range of commitments there. In terms of going forward, the advantage of the work on this plan and the work on the structure planning, sitting in John's space and in my team area, is there is those joined up conversations. And one of the things we were trying not to do in this plan was to actually overlap too much with the work that would go forward in the statutory space. So this was very much about the community engagement, the activities that were happening in the existing spaces, where the structure planning is about those wider land holdings. So hopefully we are picking up through the structure planning process, if we haven't picked up through this process, those landowners who are key. And I don't think they are disadvantaged by the way in which this plan's contexted. They can be picked up through that structure planning exercise, which is now working through. So hope that's a sufficient answer. If not, I'm more than happy to comment further.
Thanks, Trevor. I just note, Mr. Chair, at Papakura rail station, it's the second busiest on the network. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a lot of that reason the PT is so popular there is the locals, but also those people coming from the lifestyle blocks and rural areas beyond those boundaries, and they have a massive input on the township of Papakura itself, as they probably do in Manurewa, but probably to a slightly lesser extent. So I think that that's a very important component. It's not just an urban dwelling, it's servicing a much larger area. So looking forward, that'll have to be brought into context. Saying context is Pukekohe, Trevor, really, I think. And I know with the potential landowners and the key strategic landowners, we're going to start upbuilding and higher rise apartments and so forth going forward into the structure planning. Then there are some real key landholders in that area that would need to be part of that process. We're going to get it joined up nicely. So thank you, Trevor. I know you do great work.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just make couple more comments. One of the key work streams to actually take the actions of this plan forward is there is a Papakura Commercial Centre project group which is working very much around the issue of the Metropolitan Centre and how we get Papakura to actually effectively come to the party, I suppose, in terms of the future with all of that development around it. So there is, I can assure committee members, those joined up work streams, even though this may not seem to be covering everything off. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. And I noticed that in the project list for Papakura projects on page 382 that commercial centre project group is a key work stream that they would like to embark on. It's good to see. Councillor Fletcher.
Oh, thank you. And gentlemen, I think this is absolutely wonderful, excellent work. So I give you my sincere congratulations on it, and it's so overdue. I've just got a few questions and that I wasn't able to answer for myself in terms of the report. One of the big concerns I've had is just the operational funds for Bruce Pullman Park and the pressure that has placed the local board under. It's not specific in terms of the resolution. I know that we're looking 30 years out, but is there something that I've missed there? It would be good to feel that we have that clearly articulated within this document. It's such a wonderful asset for the people of Papakura and the region, actually, but the framework under which it was first established is not necessarily a sustainable one.
Trevor, you best placed. I don't think it's mentioned here specifically. I know there's a reference on page 380 at the top to developing a community safety action plan, but
No, there's no specific reference to it. I wonder whether that could be incorporated.
I think it's something we need to give some thought to. I'm pretty sure there are other mechanisms where Bruce Pullman Park's management and future plans are considered. This wasn't, I mean...
Yes, I know. In the last term of council, I had the opportunity of chairing parks, and I can tell you that this is a conundrum for the council, and I think that in terms of having integrated planning, you know, which is going to cross all of the council family, it would be helpful to have that explicitly referenced. So that was one question. Also, is there the opportunity for some work to be undertaken in Takanini retrospectively? You know, there's some very dangerous situations that have arisen out of poor planning, where people will go into countdown and there's no connectivity to the next mega mall there. People come out on the road and they're going back in. It's incredibly dangerous. I tried through Auckland Transport to try and have that directly addressed, but it comes back again to integrated planning where it's then not possible for Auckland Transport to deal with it because it becomes another issue for our planners. So I wonder, can you give me, Michael, a sense of the ability to be able to take forward some of those little quirks of history and deal with them retrospectively, or at least attempt to deal with them retrospectively?
Michael?
Through you, the Chair, I mean, it's things like that. I mean, we have picked up as part of our engagement, and the community have told us that, you know, safety issue is a big concern in Takanini, and we have sort of taken that through to some of the transformative actions for Takanini, and we do acknowledge that there are many players involved, not just the landowners but AT, and it's something that we will have to continue doing and talking and through the delivery of some of these transformative actions.
So the safety issues with it, but I also put it to you, it's the cause of some significant congestion in Takanini because people are having to come in and out of these different developments, and it's just a madness that they were never planned structurally to avoid that. So I just put that on the table. I note that for most of the Papakura initiatives, they are unfunded, and the Deputy Mayor makes an important point where there are going to be a lot of investors that will want current landowners that will want to feel that they can have their say. But I really hope that in terms of Central Park, given the importance of the Papakura rail station and the development of park and ride facilities, that can really, the connectivity in terms of Papakura as a town centre that services a wider community, that can have strong consideration. Mr Chairman, I wonder whether you would entertain, in addition to the recommendations which are delegating the authority for the sign-off of this document to the manager, wonder whether you could just incorporate also the ward councillors, because I think just one last scan would be quite good, because this is a really important document and there's been such valuable work put into it. Whether you would entertain, well, I suppose it's the mover and the seconder, but I would like to see the two ward councillors being able to give their final approval to it as well.
Look, I'm happy to have those additions. They are for minor editorials. Look, I have a responsibility. I was comfortable with the staff management. If there is going to be the addition of the councillors, I would have to have my name there as well. I have a responsibility
And IMFB.
and the
Because we've got
IMSB.
some outstanding
Well,
members
Mr
too.
So I'm happy to add-
might I suggest then that the mover and the seconder incorporate that? There is a precedent on virtually every other plan that we actually ensure that there is political input.
We'll have the, in addition, it'll be by addition actually, and the chair of the committee, ward councillors, and representative of the
Who's the
Independent Māori
deputy chair of
Statutory
this
Board.
committee?
We don't have one. Went to Parliament. And a representative of the Independent Māori Statutory Board.
Which is yours?
Satisfied, councillor?
Green or
Thank
yours?
you.
Thank you.
Green is yours, so councillors.
Good work.
And that's
gentlemen.
just for the minor editorials. Thank you. Mayor Goff.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Chairman, and just congratulations to the team, both on the process you followed and the plans that you've come up with. I was at a function in Clendon this morning with the chair of Manarewa Local Board, Angela Dalton, and she said this was the best consultation process she'd ever been engaged in. So whatever you did it well. My questions, though, the plans look really good. The thing that stands out on the plans is that most of them are unfunded. And I wondered in the consultation process whether you considered in that funding options and also what sort of prioritisation you might give to the various projects you've put forward. Are they listed in priority order, or is that simply a random order?
Mr Chair, to the Mayor, so there is a column in the table of actions with priority high, medium and low.
Yeah, I just wondered, a lot of them are high and a lot of them are still unfunded.
Correct.
Are they in a priority order as listed?
I'll hand over to the team in a second, but just to make a brief comment, some of these initiatives will potentially work through various bits of feedback on the long-term plan from the community in these areas. The local board, I think, potentially will be sort of advocating for some of the things that are currently unfunded to either receive funding through the long-term plan or future iterations of the long-term plan. But I'll hand over to the team to talk about what alternative funding discussions may have happened with the community, and also the question around the ranking.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess in terms of the priorities, a lot of them were seen as priorities because these were the very transformative projects. We do acknowledge that in terms of area plans, you do get aspirational actions that are not necessarily funded at this stage, but in terms of the shorter one, we do have a few that are funded, and some that I think as part of the delivery and implementation will need to be worked through with our internal stakeholders and external partners in terms of how they would be delivered.
Thank you. So, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Mayor. And Councillor Newman, please.
I'm a comment, not a question.
That's fine. We're taking comments now.
So firstly, can I just thank Michael and Trevor for what is a very good report, which is a culmination of an excellent piece of consultation and engagement. It has been very impressive. I've had a little bit to do with that, and I have been heartened by the work that has taken place. Chair, I think if there is a piece missing, it's actually the council itself in terms of, look, none of the areas, Maniarewa, Takanini, Papakura, they're not transformations, they're not unlocks. From a Panuku perspective, they're not there. They have been identified as priority areas for planning, but they are not there in terms of on the radar for Panuku, and we're trying to get these areas on the radar. I was asked yesterday whether I'd be prepared to pen a message, a reflection. So in summary, what I have submitted is that this area plan is a synthesis of some excellent planning and placemaking work led by the council in partnership with the Papakura and the Maniarewa local boards and with other stakeholders. I think it provides valuable insight into the priorities and aspirations of those communities. It does recognise their role within the landscape of an evolving part of the Auckland region. Chair, the unitary plan process identified the, through the regional policy statement, the policies and objectives for the region, and that is about really focusing on quality intensification and redevelopment around our mass transit corridors. And these suburbs are an obvious example of where you would want to achieve good quality intensification. Chair, if this is to be achieved, this area plan is going to need to be complemented by a timely commitment to unlock the economic potential in Maniarewa, Takanini and Papakura. And it goes to the question that the Mayor asked was a pertinent one, because the projects that are identified in the schedules here, those things that have, look, those local boards have had to nickel and dime their way through, and what they are doing is identifying work streams that are a priority. They've been identified as priorities in the local board plans. They have been identified as things that some funding can be unlocked for that purpose. But this is something that the local boards have been driving. I mean, for example, undertake improvements to water quality at Weymouth Beach. When the local board in Maniarewa gets advice that it shouldn't undertake that in case it identifies problems that are going to require some money to be spent to improve water quality at Weymouth Beach, that's very cynical statement to make to the chair of the local board. And I don't want that statement, I don't want that advice to be proffered, because that's poor advice. Chair, there will be some recommendations. The local board in Maniarewa has put forward its priority, which is Memorial Park, which has been identified there, and that will be a priority that the board wants to take through into the 10-year plan debate. The Papakura local board wants its park and ride at the Papakura train station, and Bill Cashmore is right to identify that as a key priority, because it's not just for Papakura, it is for people who aren't necessarily from Papakura but who use that station and who don't have access to public transport. They need to be able to access that station, and so the park and ride complements that. So I welcome the area plan. I really do welcome the area plan, but it is important that this area plan not just be treated as the council's response to the needs of this part of Auckland. This needs to be complemented with a tangible commitment from Panuku and other organs within the organisation to enable the projects that have been identified, scoped, and they have been consulted on through the preparation of this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Any other speakers? Should we close our debate here, members, and put the motions moved by Councillor Sir John Walker and seconded by Councillor Newman, the local ward councillors?
Call me Daniel.
Sorry?
Call me Daniel.
And we will put the motion then. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Excellent work.